In this episode, we fire up a new series of Driver's Seat. The business behind Formula One. A new technical era in Grand Prix racing. And remembering Ayrton Senna. Welcome to a brand new season of Driver's Seat. With 13 more episodes to look forward to, we bring you all the features and stories in and around the world of Formula One. We explore the technology that powers the cars and look at safety. And delve into the business of one of the most international world sports. We speak to the drivers about why they put it all on the line for the glory of winning. Big names have changed teams. Sebastian Vettel to Ferrari, Fernando Alonso back to McLaren. Why have they made these career-changing decisions? We explore the Formula One world off track, finding out how the drivers enjoy their time away from racing. With limited race seats opening up, only a select few will ever get to drive a Formula One car. Who is the new talent, and how have they made a name for themselves? Stay tuned for all this and more. As well as being a worldwide sport, Formula One is also a $2.25 billion business. The mysteries of Formula One finances have always been part of the sport's intrigue. Who spends what? Where do the revenue streams come from? And who, if anyone, is making profit, and how? Few race weekends pass without tales of money woes sweeping through the paddock. Over the years, teams have had to resort to pay drivers and shareholder loans to stay afloat in times of crisis. Caterham even used a crowdfunding campaign to finish the 2014 season. Sponsors put the pressure on teams who need multi-million-dollar budgets to keep their massive numbers of staff employed. Introduction of F1's impressively efficient but expensive hybrid power units further skewed budgets. Engine costs doubled, while an expanded calendar for 2015 compounded financial pressures. Since budget and performance are related, disparities in finance are evident in the performance spread. The best funded teams race at the sharp end, and budget operations bring up the rear. The middle class survives, just. Beginning in 2013, the Big Five, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren and Williams, received varying bonuses from commercial rights holder Formula One management, further widening the divide between rich and poor. Red Bull and Ferrari both have budgets in the region of $375 million a year. Mercedes and McLaren's are a little less at just under $300 million. But in the case of both Mercedes and Ferrari, that figure does not count the money they spend on manufacturing engines for their works teams and their customers. There's then a drop to the rest of the grid, with Lotus operating on around $195 million and Williams, Force India, Toro Rosso and Sauber around the $150 million mark. Marussia and Caterham were reputedly getting by, or not as the case turned out to be, on $100 million and $90 million respectively. Out of the 9 teams that competed up until the end of last year, only 4 have the potential to make a profit. Ferrari, with its road car division and FOM payouts of over $150 million, Red Bull from its sponsorship activities and similar FOM payout to Ferrari, McLaren, which is part of the bigger McLaren group, and Mercedes, the newly crowned world champions. So where does the team's income come from? In Formula One, revenues are made up of two main sources: prize money and sponsorship deals. Prize money is a hot topic. Of F1's $2.25 billion income, 63% goes to the teams, the rest to boost the profits of the commercial rights holders. The main shareholder is a venture capital group called CVC Capital Partners. Various banks and investment companies hold smaller shares. The contracts that define how the teams get paid are confidential, and each team has its own commercial deal with the rights holder. But generally, most teams get bonuses depending on where they finish each season. Just under half of the profit, about $750 million, is also split in half. That's divided between the top 10 teams as defined by their results over the previous 3 seasons. The other is split between the top 10 from the previous year alone, with each position receiving a set percentage. The higher up you finish, the more money you get. There's also a separate amount called the Constructors' Championship Bonus, which is about $280 million and split between Ferrari, Red Bull and McLaren, with Ferrari earning by far the most. In addition, the 2 other teams deemed historically important, and who also have permanent places on the rule-making F1 strategy group, Mercedes and Williams, get payments of just over $27 million. Each team not in the top 10 but competing in the championship also gets $10 million for turning up. Before any money is divided up, Ferrari receive a bonus just for being in the championship, on the basis of the value their presence is perceived to give the sport. This is worth 5% of the revenues, or about $80 million. To run a successful team with any realistic hope of winning races consistently and challenging for the championship, a team needs an income of at least $300 million. But if money is used wisely, with an exceptional and well-focused group of people, and the team has the right engine and drivers, it is possible to be competitive on half that. The race for money is as desperate as the on-track action, and often even more ruthless. Next, F1's hybrid turbo power era, and Ayrton Senna remembered. '14 brought some of the biggest changes in the history of Formula One, making it a high-tech sport which couldn't have been imagined even 10 years ago. A 1.6-litre V6 power unit was the centrepiece of the changes. Teams and drivers had to adjust almost everything to suit.
2014 is a year of enormous change for Formula One. It's almost easier to ask what hasn't changed. We've got changes in the sporting regulations, changes in the technical regulations, change of driver lineup, change of scoring points. Everything is different.
Most importantly, the 2014 season saw the introduction of a new engine formula, with turbocharged engines returning to the sport for the first time since 1988. The engines are 1.6-litre V6 with an 8-speed semi-automatic gearbox and limited to 15,000 RPM. Individual engine units must last for at least 4,000 kilometres before being replaced.
Technically, engine and chassis, if I just break those two down, that's all different. The engine is no longer a 2.4-litre V8, it's a 1.6-litre V6 engine with a very complicated energy recovery system. Not just braking energy, but now heat energy from the turbocharger and a huge lithium-ion battery in the middle of it as well. That means that the gearbox is going to be different. Instead of 7 ratios, it's 8 ratios. There are only 5 engines that are going to last you the season, and heavy penalties for failure. A gearbox has got to last 6 races.
A very strict fuel consumption. So not only have a 100 kilos maximum fuel for the race, but we also have a maximum consumption, or flow rate if you like. The old engines, for reference, we're using around 160 kilos, so it's a big reduction in fuel. And that of course means that there'll be a lot of strategy in the race. most of the races we anticipate will be fuel capacity limited. So we'll have to save fuel through the race, which will mean different driving styles, compromising lap time at times to save fuel, which obviously means how you then use your remaining fuel. Do you go out quick at the start, try and break away and then save fuel? Do you save fuel early in the race and try and sprint later in the race? All those sorts of things will come into play.
The Kinetic Energy Recovery System, known from 2009 to 2013 as CARES, is incorporated into the design of the engine and its usage increased. Its function as a supplementary power source has been replaced by the Heat-Based Energy Recovery System, or ERS. The ERS unit captures waste heat from the exhaust turbocharger using an electrical device known as a heat motor generator unit. Waste heat is stored as an electrical charge until it's used by the kinetic motor generator unit. This device is connected directly to the drivetrain to deliver the additional power. In combination with the ERS, it gives the drivers an additional 120 kilowatts for 33 seconds per lap. The aim is to generate more power from a smaller engine more efficiently.
I think it's a big technical challenge. They're hugely complicated engines compared to the V8s to install, where the V8s were sort of a very well-known package. These engines, the engine itself is easy enough to install, but then of course you've got the turbocharger, the intercoolers, the electrical side in terms of the motor generator units, where the batteries, much bigger batteries. Bigger batteries mean bigger conditioning boxes for the batteries. It also means more cooling for those batteries, so that means more radiators on top. So roughly speaking, the radiator area on the car has doubled compared to a V8, and that of course is another challenge, how you cool the car with such a big heat rejection requirement. So it really is a big change for us. The biggest engine change without doubt that we've had since the turbos disappeared in the late 80s.
I think Formula One is changing a lot. You can see now we have there's more emphasis on energy recovery systems on board the car, so that's going to change the way that you race, the way you deploy those systems during a Grand Prix. It's going to be very strategic because of the amount that you can harvest and expend around a lap. That means the requirements on a driver are going to shift. So people are going to see the drivers who are intelligent and can cope with the workload while still driving fast and being the champions that they are is going to be a material differentiator. I think we're going to see differences across teams, not just from reliability and performance, but actually the way the driver can cope with it. And also the teams, the engineers on the pit wall, they're going to be so busy just making sure that all of the energy recovery systems and turbo systems are working well within the powertrain.
And there were significant changes to how the cars looked. The regulations required the use of lower noses than in previous years in the interests of safety. It's to protect drivers from side impacts by other cars. The tip of the nose is no more than 18.5 centimeters above the ground, compared to the 55 centimeters allowed in 2012. These regulations were amended to outlaw the use of the stepped noses used in 2012 and 2013. That made the teams design cars with genuinely lower noses. The width of the front wings was reduced as well.
The second big changes really revolve around the aerodynamics. What sounds quite a small change, which is a 75 millimetres, that's roughly 3 inches reduction in the width of the wing on each side, and that was done to reduce the chances of a wing being knocked off when two cars touch in a sort of dogfight, if you like. But it has a big aerodynamic effect. Before, the front wing end plate allowed us to put the flow off the tip of the wing outside of the front wheel. Now the front end plate's right in front of the front wheel. It's in about the worst possible place. It's not inside, it's not outside. And that means that the majority of the flow now stagnates in front of the front wheel. A little bit of it finds its way outside, the rest comes inside, and in doing so makes quite a mess. The front wheel wake effectively, or the combination front wing and front wheel wake, becomes much bigger. That causes all sorts of problems downstream as you approach the side pod and the diffuser. On top of that, we have a lowered nose, which I think is supposedly be done on the grounds of safety. It's meant to reduce the chances of a car being launched if one car hits another in the manner that, for instance, when Mark Webber went up the back of Kovalainen in Valencia a few years ago. Whether it really makes a difference or not, I think, is a much more moot point, because it's been deemed that it's safer, so that's what we've had to go for.
There were also some changes in the sporting regulations, with mid-season testing returning. 4 European venues host a 2-day test in the week following the Grand Prix held at that circuit. In addition, teams must dedicate one of these days to aiding Pirelli in the development of their tyres, as Sam Michael explained.
So in terms of sporting changes, looking away from the car now, some of the biggest changes are, first of all, the aerodynamic restriction agreement is revised and in the sporting regulations. So there's a concept called 30-30, which means 30 wind-on hours a week against 30 teraflops of CFD usage per week, and you have to stay within that limit for all teams. So that's quite a big reduction from last year, and everyone will be looking around how to optimise that to get the best aerodynamic performance development during the season. The second thing is that in-season testing is back, so we're looking at 4 in-season tests, single car on the Tuesday and Wednesday after selected Grand Prix, and you'll use that for tyre development, chassis development, young drivers driving the car, systems, all those sort of things, so it's quite helpful for the teams in terms of mileage. And then the third thing is the driver numbers. So there's a new sequence of driver numbers where the driver actually selects his own number, that they're assigned for the career length of the driver, and that's it.
Only one team managed to perfect the formula in 2014, Mercedes, winning both drivers' and constructors' championships. After the break, a feature on Ayrton Senna. Formula One is a dangerous sport. One where high-speed crashes and injuries were once common. However, this is the safest era of Formula One, with advances in all aspects of the sport to make the spectacle safe, but still exciting. Long gone are the days of drivers being in danger behind the wheel of these ultimate machines. With the introduction of safety measures in the cars, better protection for the drivers and safer circuits, many lives have been saved. Until the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix, where a world champion's death shocked the world. That particular weekend at Imola is remembered as the race where Ayrton Senna died. However, an Austrian rookie by the name of Roland Ratzenberger was another victim, crashing in practice, becoming the first F1 fatality in 8 years. A day later, during a restart of the race, Brazil's triple world champion Ayrton Senna suffered the same fate. He was born Ayrton Senna da Silva on the 21st of March 1960. His career started with karts in Brazil and progressed through Formula 4 2000 and F3 in Britain, winning that title in 1983. His move to Formula 1 came in 1984 with the Toleman team. He scored 3 podiums, 13 points, and finished 9th in the Drivers' Championship. At the end of the season, Senna left Toleman to join Lotus for 1985. His first Grand Prix victory was in the pouring rain of Portugal, the second race of the season. He remained at Lotus for 3 modestly successful seasons before switching to McLaren in 1988. In his first season with McLaren, he collected 94 points and won the World Championship, despite a season-long duel with teammate and arch-rival Frenchman Alain Prost. Ruthless on the track when it suited, Senna was single-minded in pursuit of victory. The McLaren years were his peak. 3 World Championships, 1988, 1990 and 1991, with a record of 65 pole positions, he was always the driver to beat. Senna competed in 161 races and took 41 wins. 6 of these were in his adopted hometown of Monaco, where he made the track his own with a record number of wins. His final victory came in his last race for McLaren, the 1993 Australian Grand Prix in Adelaide. Senna made the decision to leave McLaren at the end of '93 because he wanted to continue his pursuit of Formula One success with the team he felt best equipped to deliver it that season, Williams-Renault. In 1994, the third phase of Senna's career began, and it brought a new challenge.
The motivation is there. It's different than before because it cannot be the same. But the main thing is to innovate and to stimulate yourself with the right challenge. And that's what I've been searching for. That's what I believe I found and I put together from now on. And that's why I've been saying I've been looking forward very much to this new challenge.
However, Senna was unable to record a race victory or even a race finish with Williams before his tragic accident at Imola. Ayrton Senna had a bigger international following than any other driver, and his popularity was and remains widespread more than 20 years after his death. The world may have lost one of its greatest racing talents in Senna, but his death was not in vain. Since 1994, driver safety has been the priority, going to great lengths to protect every driver every time they get in the car. In recent years, various safety measures have been introduced, like the head and neck system, or HANS, which protects the driver's head and spine in the event of a high-speed collision. Numerous drivers have walked away unscathed from incidents which would have had catastrophic outcomes only 20 years ago. In the next driver's seat, Sebastian Vettel from Red Bull to Ferrari. Carlos Sainz on the rise. And a tribute to Sir Jack Brabham.